Hello and welcome developers. My name is Shay and this is another episode of Shay Develops. Today we're going to be talking about access modifiers in Java. Now an access modifier allows us to control the visibility of a class and or the members of the class, i.e. fields and methods. Now we've talked about fields and methods in many videos before, so if you want to go back and look at least the video on classes, you'll be able to understand whenever I talk about fields and methods, but we're going to go over them again in this video, so it's not really necessary. So there are three types of access modifiers. There's private, protected, and public, and then there's a fourth one that is the default or no access modifier, meaning a access modifier was not given and Java goes back to a default access modifier just by default. Now we're going to go over all of these, and hopefully you guys will understand why access modifiers are important and how to use them, because they are important as far as keeping your code where your code needs to be used, and then not allowing other classes or whatever to use parts of your code that you don't want. Because by setting access to public for everything, that means any class within your package can use it, and then if you import that package into another package, any package with or any code within that package can also use that code at the same time. So it's really important that you want to keep in mind, like I said, what you want to expose to your users and other developers, and what you want to keep hidden. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to create another Java class, and we're going to call it the parent class. Not for anything specific, just because, but we're going to create a child class as well here in a little bit. So let's go ahead and do private string name, and then we're also going to do public string name 2. So we're going to give it two names because that's just what I feel like doing. Create our constructor. And now you're going to notice, though, that we have one private and one public. So let's go back here and create or declare, then instantiate our class, our parent class. Go ahead and get rid of this. So we'll do parent class. We'll just call it parent1 equals new parent class. We're going to have to give it two names. We'll give it name 1 and name 2. Now if we wanted to get access to these methods, ideally all of our fields would be private, and we would come down here and we would create getters and setters as we needed for to get access to the data within our class. So go ahead and create those right now. We're not going to use them right away, but we're going to do parent1 dot. Now see how we have access right here to name 2? That is because that is a public value or public field, and that, like I said, and that gives us access outside of the class. So with public, like I said, we have access in this class, and we have access outside the class. I said you may want that, you may not, but you definitely don't want to set this public here. So instead, we're going to go back and create this to private, because we have these public fields here, and this one allows us to create the class or create the object from the class, and then these just gives us access to the data. So instead of creating these as public, we can make them private, and then we can instead access them via our getters and setters. We have get name and get name 2. So now instead of having to worry about them being exposed to everywhere, we know that they're only exposed via our getters and setters. And that is public, like I said, that or public and private pretty much. Like I said, private only allows us to have access within our class. And then public allows access from anywhere the code, from anywhere within the package, or if the package is imported. So we have that there. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about is how the JVM works if we try and compile if the code contradicts the access modifier's intentions. So like I said, here we have private, but if I wanted to come down here and try name2 and get access to that, it's not going to allow us. So the JVM, the Java Virtual Machine, helps us by not allowing us to run the code where access modifiers are contradictory of each other. So that also being said, if I wanted, say, this class to be private, that's also not allowed because of how, and we'll highlight it here, modifier private not allowed here. That's because of how the access modifiers work whenever we are giving it into a class or an interface or an enum. That is because these are considered top level types, data types, and a top level type can only use the public or default access modifiers, but any classes within can use the access modifier. So if we control C that back to normal, and I created another class within this class. So if I was to do private class inner class, that's okay. I can create this new class within my parent class. I know we haven't talked about inner classes yet, but I will be making a video on that. But that's okay because I can create this new class within this parent class and then give it the private or the private inner class. So, well, what about if I was to create a child class, right? I said I was going to do that. So let's go ahead and create a new class. We'll call it child class. Make that a little bigger. And we're going to update this. We're going to get rid of that one. That. Just some stuff we really don't need. There we go. And now we're just going to keep it with one name. So now if I have a child class, I could extend my parent class. And then I could do private int age, just to make it a little different. And then create my constructor where I'm getting the data from the parent class. And then while I'm creating the child class, and we'll do that here in a second. But now, let's say, can I then make this private to where it's only accessible? No, I can't do it. It's not, so I said any class, like I said, because these are top level types, we can only use the public and default. And default just means I don't put anything at all. And that allows us to, well, it's basically the absence of the access modifier, and what it means is it's accessible to all the classes that belong to the same package. And you might also see this as terms of package private or package access. And then as soon as I create an interface, you'll also see though that the default access modifier is not used in interfaces as well. And I know this is kind of going around and back and forth, but just keep in mind that your access modifier dictates what in your program can see other code. Just keep that in mind, and you guys can hopefully, and also keep in mind, okay, what do I want to expose in my program to other parts of my program? If you can keep that in mind, say, hey, I don't want to expose it to here, I want to expose it to here, and vice versa, you'll get to see and understand, like I said, access modifiers, because they're a fairly simple concept, but they can be difficult to completely wrap your head around. So let's go ahead and create a new Java class. It's going to be an interface, actually, and we'll call it iTest. For just a test interface. Make that a little bigger. Now, interfaces, like I said, you can't use the default. That's because these interfaces already have an access modifiers of public. Now, with the introduction of, I believe it was Java 8 or Java 9, you can make some methods private. But whenever you do that, so you can go back and check on my video on interfaces to understand that a little bit further. But that's not something, like I said, that we're going to want to do in this video. So let's go ahead and create some methods and some fields here. So if we wanted to use private string name, well, it's not going to work. But we could use public string name. And it's giving us error because we're not initializing it, and that's totally fine. But you'll notice how, as we use that here, it grays it out, basically meaning this is redundant and it's not actually needed. So let's go ahead and get rid of that error, though. Here we go. So if we erase this, those two things are the exact same. It means the visibility is public. All interface variables are public, static, and final, like we talked about in our interface video. And the fact that that is exposed to the rest of our project or rest of our package, especially if we implement it. So if we got extends parent class and then implements iTest, we'll now have access to, and we'll do like public void print stuff. We will now have access to the iTest .name that we could then print out as we saw fit. Okay, not a statement, it's fine. So there we go. So after we created save and get rid of the error, but so that allows us to get access to that. And if we were to make this private, it would kind of defeat the purpose of how interfaces are supposed to work to begin with. So that's a reason that Java doesn't allow us to do this. Now, if we were to create a method in here, voids to method A, it's also going to be public. So if we were to also come in here and try and create this one as private, it's also going to fail. Go ahead and erase that. All right, the last one we're going to be talking about is protected. Protected means that it's accessible from the same package or a subclass regardless of the package. So if I was to bring this into another package and then create a child package of that, or I'm sorry, or make it a child class of another class within a different package, then it would allow me to use that as well. So if we were to come in here and create, and let's do protected void protected method. This is a protected method. And now we're going to come out here into main. I'm gonna fix this error real quick. Here we go. And we're going to come out here into main and we do parent1 dot protected method. This should run just fine because it's accessible from the same package, which our package right now is .com or .com/Shay develops, and we have an error here. Oh, we have to implement the methods because I created it within its parent class. So I could declare this as abstract. Oh, maybe not. Can't do it there. All right, we'll just create an override method A from the child class. Now we've talked about overriding methods as well in another video, so if you want to learn more about that, you can check it out. All right, so let's go ahead and run this again because I got an error there. But now, like I said, we are outputting that protected method because we are in the same package. So if I was to create a new package, which I'll be doing that in another video, and I'll dive into more into the protected access modifiers whenever I create that new video. But if I was to come in here and create a new package, because it is a little bit of a slightly in-depth process, if I was to come in here and create a new package and then try and access this protected method without importing it, it would not work, and Java would not allow me to access to that. All right, so hopefully you guys learned something from this access modifiers video. Let me know in the comments, like I said, what I can do better, what you guys are learning about, how I can help you. That's it. Basically, that's why I do these videos. I want to help you guys. I want to help myself as far as learning and teaching, and just spread knowledge to anybody that wants to learn. All right, but until then, guys, like I said, hit me up in the comments. Just say hey, whatever. I like to hear from you guys and just keep in touch. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Y'all are awesome. Take care.